we don't think about, okay, my kid is 2, what boundaries should they have? My kid is 6, what boundaries should they have? My kid is 12, what boundaries should, so boundaries either grow or shrink depending on how mature they are. But we have to consider their boundaries, we have to consider consequences, and that's the hardest thing for changing over. So if I can't whoop my kid, what do I do?
What's going on, guys? Welcome to another edition of Dads on Purpose, the podcast. I'm your host, as always, Josh Ashford. Man, I got the big homie, got the energy of the show. Kev, how you doing, man?
What's up, baby?
Yo. Coming in hot.
Shut it down. Yes, sir.
Bro,
Shut it down. Listen,
I'm going to have to edit that one piece of clip just to bring it down like a whole bunch of decibels.
My bad. But listen, I'm so excited to be back, man. I'm so excited to be on here this week.
Yo, I'm not going to lie. You say you're so excited to be back. Real quick sidebar. There's a show on Netflix. It's called, what is it? Is it Space Team or Space something? Golly. Anyways, but they send this black girl to the moon, and she was just like, oh, what I'm going to say once I get to the moon? Because she lands on it, and she's like, I'm supposed to say something really profound, and she wants to say, it's good to be back on the moon. But instead, she messes up, and she said, it's good to be black on the moon. And when Kev said it's good to be back, I thought he said it's good to be black, and I was like, you know what?
It is good to be black.
Anyway, man, we got the unofficial third guest, host, podcaster, whatever you want to call him, man. Mr. DJ Inspires. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing great. You know, I gotta get on my P's and Q's because if I keep showing up late to this recording, then y'all gonna kick me off as the unofficial third.
I mean, there's a long waiting list. Includes your name.
What are we talking about today?
Yo, so here's the thing, man. I want to have this conversation, and I'm super glad that we're having it because DJ's here, and I know how passionate you are about this subject. And it's still January, so we can still do this whole new me, new you, new year, new me, whatever deal.
Yeah.
I'm gonna switch up my parenting style. I want to talk about the whole spare the rod, spoil the child. And I mean, not even on the biblical sense or the philosophy, just in general of parenting styles, because I feel like we're in this era right now where I don't want to say a massive shift, but it's a bigger shift than we've seen before of parents that are leaving the whole, well, I'm gonna beat my kids because I'm gonna beat my kids, and they just ain't acting right.
Yeah.
And I want to get y'all's thoughts, and then I want to get some practical like steps on what we can do to kind of get away from that, man, because I think that's where we need to go. Like there's so much science about the effects of hitting your kids and beating your kids. But it seems like we're the ones, when I say we, I mean me and DJ and Kev, you can kind of be included in there too. As far as having younger kids, it seems like people with younger kids are really taking on that wave, and those with older kids, because, you know, Kev, your daughter's 12. I had a conversation with somebody, you know, a couple weeks ago, and I was just like, stop hitting your kids. And they were like, nope.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? So I don't even need to get y'all's take because I know where you guys stand, but I feel like where did this come from? Like, how did we get here? How did we get there? Because I remember I got shoes thrown at me, I got hangers thrown at me. You know, I got beat. No, I didn't get beat. I got whooped, but I got, you know, my dad come in and he'd talk to me, tell me what I did wrong. And he'd be like, all right, when I pull your pants down. Well, man, look, it was bad enough the conversation we just had. Now you want to give me a spanking. And then as I got older, I didn't get whoopings anymore. I got punched in the chest. So that's probably what's wrong with me. But
there's so many layers to this conversation. And you said where did it come from? And we always, I think in the Black community, had the idea that it stemmed from slavery. And so let's go back to what that conversation was like. is it to the slave master's advantage to raise kids who are going to be liberated, who are going to be able to advocate for themselves, who are going to be able to be leaders in the community? Hell no, it's not. So the master's like, I'm being real, right? So the master's like, hey, we're going to teach our slaves to raise their kids to be slaves. So that means, yes, master, that means I'm going to be loyal to the slave master and make sure that I don't run away from this plantation. And so what type of behaviors do you implement in those kids to make sure that they stay in line? And so you get that kind of idea of how do we parent. And if you really think about it, I'm still doing my research on what type of parenting was happening when in Africa, right? Back to our roots.
Can we just take a quick step back real quick, because I get tired of using this, but it really is the truth. So many things that are not beneficial in our community stem from slavery. Like, let's just be real. Like you think about our parenting styles. You think about when creating generational wealth, because we ain't never had nothing, and now us as Black folks, we starting to get some money. Last thing we're gonna do is want to get back. We're like, yo, I just got some money. Like, let me hold a little. You know what I mean? And that's my little sidebar tangent. Go ahead, DJ. My bad.
My bad. No, you're good. So what I know, and like I said, I still want to do research on it, but what I know is that our ancestors revered kids, meaning they saw them in a high standard, like they acted that way towards the kiddos. I just read a book. Dang, what was that book called? Shoot, dang it, I need to get it because it's a good book. Anywho, in the book, she talked about going back to Africa and just even today, and how the kids were acting, how they treated the kids there. Like, and so when we get to slavery now, like that whole thing kind of shifts. So when our parents and their parents and their parents before them, like the very basic crux of their parenting came from this idea that we need to oppress our kids because we don't need to have, especially in the Black community, we don't need to raise up liberated, free thinking kids because that is not beneficial to the greater society that was a part of our country's history back years. So when we think about current parents who have still adapted this, I'm going to hit my kids on the wheel, I'm going to oppress them, right? It stems from that, and it's so bad, right? It's so rooted that you got people who are like, I want my kids, but I'm gonna leave that door open. Like it's so rooted. Like for whatever reason, we're so. Josh is raising his hand. If you're not,
no, I'm raising my hand not in agreement. I'm saying that was my mentality.
Definitely. But it's, exactly.
You had that conversation with somebody somebody like last week or something like that, and I kind of told you how I got on their platform, and I said some off the cuff stuff. I wasn't even on no like, oh, I beat my kids type of deal. It was just like, oh, yeah, I don't believe in hitting my kids unless the situation calls for it. Yeah, bro, when I said they came out the woods for me, and I was like, and here's the thing, I hadn't really thought about it. That was just my natural. I didn't beat my kids. I didn't hit my kids. That was just like my thought process. And as they came for me, I started to rethink, and I didn't change my mind because of them. I changed my mind because I was like, yo, when it all boils down to it, like hitting your kid. No, it's like when it comes down to it and hitting your kids at the end of the day, it's because you as a parent don't understand.
Yeah.
You don't understand what you're. Go ahead. Yeah, my bad.
No, you're good. You're good. Because I just think that's the problem, though. The problem is, and what people don't understand, that's even with my work in racial equity. Like, people don't understand there's been a huge difference in the way we were raised. And it's not that we didn't grow up not having anything. It's the things that we grew up building and having, they took it away from us. The community that we were building and growing for ourselves, they took it away from us. The parenting styles and the schools that we had, they took it away from us. Does that make sense? And they tried to integrate us. And I try to tell people this all the time. We cannot be raised the same way as most other individuals are raising their kids. Some of our, I get it, right? And I have to restrain myself because of my frustration, so I don't whoop Kendall. But sometimes we have to figure out a different way to reach our kids because my kid is just like me. She's stubborn. So, but if I didn't know who I was as an individual, if I didn't know what it takes for me to get over my shortfallings and my overcomings, then with my frustration, I would whoop my kid, right? And that's what I hear DJ always preaching and stuff. It's like you're angry, you're mad, and you frustrated, so you want to go whoop your kid. But that's what we always knew. That's what our culture grew up doing. And then what happened was when slavery spilled over into laws, now everybody being mixed in, Caucasians, Latinos. And so we all have this mentality that we can't think anything different. When I became a mentor, DJ, I started studying how do you develop students? How do you develop kids? And back in those days in Africa, bro, your parents taught you as much as they could. They would teach you all of the basics of the community, right? So whatever is coming within that community, their job was to be the teacher, you're not going to a school, so if you learned how to cook, clean, add, subtract, read, all of that stuff happened within the household. And then at the age of 10, 11, 12, you would go into apprenticeship, right? So if your dad was a carpenter, well, 9 times out of 10, you were going to learn how to be a carpenter. And then you would go into apprenticeship for the next couple of years. And then the discipline of what you're not doing with your apprentice will be left on the parents to handle. Hey, why are you not doing what you're supposed to be doing? Like, we need you to really focus or you're not going to get preferred in this. And that's why you're with the apprentice. So I think what has happened, the way I feel what has happened is that number one, we're not parenting. No, our parents aren't parenting, our parents' parents aren't parenting. And those who have learned how to parent, they're older, they're very much older, but they learned under a system that was not designed for us to win. So we have to unlearn and relearn. So what do I mean by that was when Kendall was 2, we kept telling her no, we kept telling her no, and I was ready to spank her, like pop her on the leg, not whoop her, but at least be like, hey, you heard me? Didn't I tell you no? And my wife was like, no, don't hit my baby. Please don't hit my baby. And that's when I, woke up for me to say, okay, there has to be a different way for us to parent if I'm not, if I don't want to hurt my child or put that, instance in their mind of, and not even a fear, but it was just a consequence for me. Does that make sense? So I had to come up with different consequences. But watch this. I didn't come up with different consequences until we were in an environment that was teaching different consequences. And so I think what happens for a lot of us who are on these platforms, number one, they haven't been fully exposed to our culture. So they don't understand why we whoop our kids. They don't understand and they don't understand the pressure of our community and what we come home to. Like my wife's a teacher.
Well, I gotta stop you right there though, Kev, because what does that have to do with anything? Like, as far as like why we whoop our kids, like, and other people and outsiders understanding, what did that got to do with anything with the fact that, you know what I mean? Because I'm looking at DJ and DJ's ready to go. DJ, he got stuff stemming. The problem is Kev got a lot to say and he ain't took a breath.
So Kev,
my bad.
But he just dropped like 27 nuggets.
Let's think about this. Let's think about all the situations that we got whoopings when we were a kid. What thing was lacking in our parents? Like, what one word was lacking in our parents that caused them to whoop us?
What you mean?
What do you think? Like a word that they were, like something that they were missing. One word that they were missing that caused them to be like, I'm gonna whoop you, like, quickly.
Bro, you know
Keyword.
what?
Patience.
I don't know, because
they didn't have no patience.
I mean, I deserved a lot of them. I would just be real.
You're a kid. You're exploring. You're doing different. Like, and
I wasn't exploring. I was stealing.
You're just tearing stuff up.
As a teenager, because that's part of the teenage brain development of like us being able to
I was like 9, 10.
Oh, that's
bro, listen, look, I don't talk about this a lot, but I got arrested when I was 12 years old on some felony stuff.
Wow.
But that's a whole different other story. But going back, my environment. I grew up in LA in the 90s. Like we had just came out of the whole NWA area. My dad was a gangster. Like point blank period. My dad was
But I think that's what's important about when I say culture, I don't mean culture, but the society standards of what we grew up in, right? And that's what I'm saying right there, Josh. Like, it's hard. I've worked in and I know DJ's worked in low income school areas where when they see us and they hear us and they feel the love, they feel the support, they see a different way. But then when you go into a community that's broken, that's fractured, that's not, they're not growing up like you grew up in, like we grew up in the 90s, right? I grew up in the 90s too. But because of my area, man, if I did something wrong, I was getting snatched. You know what I mean? I was getting snatched by somebody. That makes sense. And so I think that's what I mean by the culture, bro. I mean by the culture is just like, bro, how did you grow up? What was around you? Even though if you had some positive and some positivity poured into, what are you getting out of it when you get back into the community? And I think that sometimes has a pull on our culture to beat our kids instead of rectify the situation outside of our kid. Like, we got to provide, different routes for our kids so they won't continue to make the same mistakes or the same choices. And I think that's what DJ is saying. It's like patience. My kid keeps making the same mistake. He keep getting in trouble. I'm so tired of this BS. And then a lot of times, right, I don't even think it's the kid in the situation. They dealing with work situations. They dealing with finances. They dealing with all of that other stuff. And then on top of that, what's up, man?
Hey.
Hey.
For the podcast. He like, what's going on, Daddy?
Yeah, no
but
idea.
but they're dealing with those issues too, and then you're bringing those issues into a situation where a kid has no idea of, and as a son of a teacher, it was 10 times worse because she's dealing with kids that weren't getting it, and then I come home and bring the same issues. So so sometimes that was some of the issue. Is just the not being patient and not having a way to decompress before you handle a situation that has occurred with your kid.
Yeah. But
go ahead,
here's
DJ.
The thing, though. Oh, I'm gonna let DJ go back. But here's the thing: is that you said something, Kev. You said, "Oh, he keeps doing the same thing over and over and over." That goes back to what I was saying earlier. I don't know if I said it on the podcast or before when we was talking. It was just like the major problem is that parents, you don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
You don't understand why they're doing what they're doing. Like my 2-year-old daughter, she was having a fit this morning about like getting up and not wanting to get ready, and everything was, no, I don't want to do this. At the end of the day, like, I had to understand like where she's at a 2-year-old just waking up. She's just like, I'm tired, and like just give her like 20 minutes. Like she on the floor throwing a little tantrum. Hey, you could do that as long as you don't hit daddy, because then we got another conversation. But express your emotions, get them out.
Yeah,
let's deal with those. And I know you're going to be fine in 20 minutes. And so when it goes back to, oh, my son, he keeps doing the same thing. He keeps getting in trouble. He's trying to tell you something. It's something that he's telling you that you're not listening to. And I'm going to need you to rewire in the way you're looking at the situation, because the situation ain't the situation.
Definitely.
I think about there's a post that I posted recently, and it was it got shared in this parenting group, and it was crazy. And the post basically said, like, it's funny because a lot of parents get into parenting and they wing it, not realizing that there is science behind how their kid acts, how they go about, what the development is like. And because you have not somehow, some way sought out that knowledge, that information, you're looking at your child's behavior as like, oh, they're doing this, or you're chalking it up to terrible twos, or you're chalking it up to them being a teenager. And it's just like, if you really like read the information that's available, right? We have Google, we have YouTube, like there's so many, resources to understand your child. Like that helps you be more patient and understanding. But I had the same situation, Josh. Kai the other day, we went to go get some food. This thing is like one toy. And I'm like, dude, you got 100 toys, no toy today, right? Still, staying strong on that. We get home, he's mad that we're going home. So he's like, I feel it brewing. He's upset and frustrated. And I'm keeping my calm the whole time, right? So we get in the house, and then he's going off even more. And so I'm like, I'm a parent coach, gotta calm down. And the great thing about, like, Kev knows this, like, when you're a parent coach, when you're a person who's advocating for parents, you're throwing stuff out there, like, people feel like your ish can't stink. People feel like you gotta be the best parent ever. And I'm like, no, that's far from the truth. I'm working on it just like you're working on it, but I'm gonna help you along the way. And so he finally, like, goes to his room, slams the door, and he's like, he has a moment. I'm like, cool, I'm about to eat. You come out when you're ready, right? So he comes out.
You do you.
And my son is 3, right? So he comes out and he's like, you can kind of tell that was embarrassed by his behavior. Like, that's the vibe that I got from him.
Yeah.
And so, I was like, hey, you want some of these, this food that I had? And so I gave it to him. He started eating like nothing happened. So once we had a moment to calm down, I said, hey, man, it sounds like you have some really big feelings. Like, just don't understand. It's okay to express those things. And this is kind of what it is. Like, I know if I didn't have the information to know, like, hey, man, this is how he's expressing himself. Y'all know dang well. My wife said it, like, yo, you slamming doors at 3?
I'm gonna take all these doors off. Unscrew it in. Ain't gonna be no doors.
Take them off. Take them off now. Take every door off the house.
The way that kids are wired, all of us as human beings, there's this thing called flight or fright. So meaning, like, if they're threatened by, I know you saw him in the back.
Yeah, I thought I was about to jump off the couch, bro. I saw him in the back. I saw my man about to take flight.
So when they're threatened, there's not going to be any amount of reasoning happening because all they're focused on is protecting themselves from the stimulus that is causing them to go, oh, whoa, what's that? My brain is like, what's happening? I'm threatened. Like, so for me to yell back at him wouldn't have made no sense. So I kept my calm, and now we're good. And now I don't have to damage our relationship by me being in my feelings about whatever my kid did. Like, I think the biggest thing that has happened for me as a parent is, like, I've just been able to see their behavior for what it is. Like, I don't make it more than what it is. I don't give too much energy to it. Like, there's enough things that I'm worried about as a parent. The last thing I need to be worried about is my kid having a tantrum. Like, of course, we want to work through that and we want to make sure that it doesn't become an issue. But, like, I'm not going to talk to them while they're having a tantrum. I'm going to talk to them when they're calm so they can fully understand and see, like, oh, okay, I know that. And he doesn't have too many of those tantrums.
Yeah.
So it's just learning and understanding, like, yo, my kid is a kid. He's a little person. And I think our old parenting styles, our parents, our grandparents, they have this idea that kids should stay in a kid's place. And so you're not valuing them as a person. That's the issue.
Right there.
And so one of the big, and Kev can speak to this, like, one of the big things that we see with our teenagers is that when they get into trouble and they have all these things, they don't have control over their lives. Like, and you're probably like, teenagers have control over their lives. Yes, they're becoming adults in like 4 or 5 years. Like, you got to implement and establish control in their lives, and little by little, but there has to be some sense of control. And with us as parents, they're like, no, I'm the parent, I'm the mom, I'm the dad, I'm in control. You respect me. And it's just like,
do as I say.
Exactly. If you're going to continue to be that way, you're going to raise up a child, but are you going to raise up a child who's going to be able to speak for themselves and advocate for themselves in the boardroom or in a position for a job? Are they going to be able to speak for themselves confidently in a job interview? Like, these are things we're not thinking about. Like, we're thinking about in the moment parenting, but we're not thinking about the marathon that is parenting.
Yeah. But I think you said something very, very that I have been in my heart and my mind. We gotta stop. Listen, and I'm going to the Bible, because I know when we come to parenting and we talk about the Bible and we talk about how to parent from the Bible, but the Bible tells us specifically that there is no other inheritance in this world. Your house don't matter, the car you drive don't matter, the money you have saved up doesn't matter. Like, none of that matters. What really matters at the beginning of the Bible was your inheritance was to be fruitful and multiply. To be fruitful and multiply. And I think that's the first thing. I think especially in the Black culture, we have gotten the idea of being pregnant and having children to be a bad thing. You too young to be having kids, or I don't know why you having kids. You can't take care of them, or I don't know, your mentality. Why you got kids? You bad yourself. And that's what happens with a lot of fathers, right? So with a lot of fathers, man, he smoked. He in the street. he a gangster. He ain't, but if you let him take care of his kid, he will eventually. He may not be the man you want him to be, but he gonna be a really good father for his kid, the best father that he can be. But I think number one, we think that having kids is bad. Like if you have more than one kid, it's bad. And I have to tell Kendall, we were talking, and I was like, your grandfather was a child of 10. Like, my grandmother had, yeah, bro. You know what I mean? But we have now made that. I think that's the first thing. First thing is we haven't embraced the idea that our kids are our inheritance. And number two is what DJ said. Our kids are little people. They have personalities. They have ideas. They have thoughts. They have all of these intrinsic things about them, just like you. But the problem is that we can't be good parents because we don't know how to talk to ourselves. We don't know how to calm ourselves down. We don't know how to, you know what I mean? We don't know how to talk to somebody else about how we feel. We don't know, man. I'm just saying, bro. Like seriously, like so we're talking about because my thought in my mind right now is because so I'm just being real. We're talking about the Black community and parenting. Yeah. And I know this affects every community, but we see it even more in the Black community. But these are the things that we're struggling with that steered down from slave. Like it's sad, but this is how much slavery has made an impact on our communities and who we are. And we have to break that cycle, but we cannot break that cycle if we don't know the cycle needs to be broken. And in order for that cycle to be broken, we have to understand, like the Bible says, treat others as you want to be treated. So when you slapped your kid in the face because you was mad at him or her, would you want to be slapped in the face? Does it make sense?
They probably do it because that's how they were treated. So
that's what I'm.
But it makes sense. Like you talking about treat them how you want to be treated, but they treat them how they were treated.
But that's what started in the community.
But that's what started. But that's what started my new journey. I didn't want Kendall to be whooped. You know what I mean? I didn't want her to go through that. Like I was, and man, Mama, I love you. Thank you for all my whoopings. I know you whooped me because you love me. But watch this.
No, I'm gonna stop you. Like we gotta hold them accountable, right? Like our parents can be good, but they can also be like held accountable for their mistakes.
Yeah.
Right. Like and so like yes, I love you, Mom, but you made mistakes. Like that's the reality. Like I think both of those can be true. So
no, definitely. And I was just saying that because y'all know my mama is a faithful listener.
But she be on there. But listen, we talking real on a micro level right now. So on a macro level, as far as let's just keep it in our community. Like let's just keep it in the Black community on a macro level. Like what does that look like? What does that shift look like? Because DJ, you talk about resources and things like that, but a lot of the problem is that there's so much information, people don't know how to dissect it. So you think about, I think about Wall Street Trapper and how he breaks down stocks, and so he's helping our people become more financially savvy in speaking in terms that we relate to, relating to the trap and all those things. And so it's like, how do we translate all of this information that is out there that can be easily accessible into a way that we as an entire community will understand? Like, you feel me?
Yeah, I think it just really, if you're out there and you're like, yo, I ain't feeling this conversation, like
they ain't got this far because we about 28 minutes in. So
I know, right?
They didn't shut it off.
Spare the rod, spoil the child, like that's in the Bible. Like I get all that, but really evaluate why you feel this urgent need to whip your kid. And then have a conversation around why we as a collective people feel like the only way to discipline correctly is to hit or whoop or hit or whatever. Like when you think about disciplining, like you're trying to shift a behavior and encourage a desired behavior. And so I always say this, like when I got whooped, like there wasn't a conversation happening about like, you did something wrong, I'm gonna hit you. Okay, how do I do it right though? Like, how do I change my behavior to like, I got whooped multiple times for the same infraction. Like, so like.
This man said infraction.
It is what it is.
I know.
but just like, I think we're just hitting and we're just whooping and we just have this idea like this is the only way. And it's just like, no, we recognize that there's so many different ways to parent and you might still feel like, well, this is the way. But the reality is Are we continuing to harm our child and their ability to be the leaders that we need them to be in our communities? Or are we stifling their ability to speak up for themselves? Are we killing their self-esteem? Like, are we making them fearful of like who they are in relationships with other people? Like, it's just, we don't think enough of the long-term effects of these actions. And there's a reason why there's a shift in the culture to have people not whooping their kids. Like, there's a reason, and for people to be behind on that boat of like, yo, I'm sticking to them. Like, okay, at this point, it's a selfish reason. Like, at this point, it's a self-serving thing for you, and we all know that parenting is selfless, not selfish. So y'all gotta make sure and have those questions about yourself. Like, am I doing this for me and my feelings, or am I doing this to help my child become the best version of themselves? And if you can't answer that question, then reevaluate and figure out what is it going to take. And you said resources. Like, y'all be on Instagram scrolling and doing different things. There are so many parenting resources on Instagram. I just discovered some of them in the last couple of months.
Give me some hashtags.
Well, you know, one, Latinx parenting is one. For the culture though, there's a Black lady named Yolanda Williams. I was actually just on her podcast. Hers is Parenting Decolonized, but it's parenting is spelled different. Maybe we can put it in the show notes, but she's a good resource. Same situation as us, was beat, whooped, hit, and she's just, you know, advocates for us to kind of get away from that. Some of them are escaping me, but if you follow me at DJ Inspires Parenting, yeah, true. If you follow me at DJ Inspires Parenting, I post up as well as I share and repost certain things. So definitely hit me up on there, and I can get you resources that you need, especially if you, because you know, one of the things, we're in a community, right? Because what I've been saying is we're trailblazing. We're stepping away from how we were parented, and we're stepping away from how society has tended to parent our children. And so when you do stuff like that, it's imperative that you connect with people who are on this path with you, because we know how hard it is. So definitely get connected with people. And like I said, yes, you're right. There's a lot of information out there, but it could be weaved out. You could find the information.
This conversation is really specific to like the people that are interested in or have a desire to shift. Because let me be real.
That's good.
If you don't have a desire, I'm not talking to you. Like if you just like, oh, well, works in my house. Well, you do you, boo. We're not talking to you. I appreciate you. Thanks for listening. Go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button. Catch you on the next show.
Anyway,
but this is for people that have an interest in shifting the mindset. The people that see the benefits that are out there to not beating your kids.
Yeah, but you to your point, like real quick, Kev. Like, you get even the people who are like, what works in my house, like that statement alone is selfish. Like does it work for you or does it work for the kid? Like in the moment, like when we think about it, like in the moment, yes, whoopings in the moment worked. Like I was quiet. I called it I sit in my room and I get the secondary cry. I don't know what y'all call it. I call it the second cry, where you finish crying and then all of a sudden you like.
No, but I correlated to like people on the far left and the far right. Like they're not trying to hear what you're talking about, so I'm not even talking. Like,
I think I'm talking
to the 80% in the middle.
I think there is a lot of people who want to change, but what the hardest part for change for me was the discipline part, right? And I think that's the hardest part, because you really have to focus on, okay, if my kid does this, what will the consequence be? Does that make sense? And I don't, and that's what it was. Like seriously, man, that was what's best. So it's like, okay, Kevin, you're going to switch over to, and listen, y'all, I am an advocate. I'm not certified. I'm an advocate for Love and Logic, and I'm an advocate for my boys' parenting group. And so there's two things you need to do. You either need to get some books and get real about changing your parenting, and you need to join a parenting group. Like seriously, you need to get a part of a parenting group, because that's what helped me. I had Kendall was in pre-K or daycare, and at the Montessori school we had parenting sessions. So once a Wednesday we will go over the tips, tools, and tricks in order for us to help our kid grow. And one of the biggest things that I realized, the hardest thing is, number one, setting boundaries, because We don't
That's
think
good.
about, okay, my kid is 2, what boundaries should they have? My kid is 6, what boundaries should they have? My kid is 12, what boundaries should, so it's boundaries either grow or shrink depending on how mature they are. But we have to consider their boundaries, we have to consider consequences, and that's the hardest thing for changing over. So if I can't whoop my kid, what do I do? If I can't, and then
Yeah.
if what and then at what level, because that's what I mentioned earlier, right? When we had this conversation a couple of months ago,
Yeah.
it was just a level thing for me at that point. It was like, okay, I'm gonna talk to, it was like going to work. You get a warning, you getting written up,
Yeah.
and then you go get a tap from something because I've done everything that I knew how to do to get you moving. But at the end of the day, is that the best consequence for this situation? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is that what we should be doing? So I think the hard thing for many of us would be, okay, what are going to be the boundaries? And what are going to be the consequences when our kids do something bad? But also, what are the consequences when our kids do something good? We never praise our kids when they're doing good. We always notice the bad things that they do. I
Too much.
guarantee you, if you start praising your kid on the little things, and if you start noticing the changes that you wanted out of your kid, they will begin to improve. Right. And so I think that's the hard thing. Is like we got to figure out what our boundaries and what the consequences are going to be for parenting. So hey, if y'all listening, man, y'all need to get on DJ's parenting on purpose app so that you can get connected. He has a text
Yep.
group. So if you have questions about being, I'm frustrated, I'm about to knock him out,
Yeah.
what do I need to do? Pull back, take a couple of breaths and ask, is this consequence what he did, is it something that I really need to lose my mind over, or is it something I need to go sit them into the room and say, I'm gonna deal with you in a second, let them sweat it out,
Yeah.
and so those are the hard things that I had to learn when switching over from the colonialism disciplinary way over to,
Call it what it
yeah, I
is.
mean,
Yeah.
seriously, that's what it is. And then and watch this, to a woke, open mindset of parenting, because when we're parenting this
Why,
way,
Kevin? Why did you make that switch to woke open? Was the biggest reason why?
because I the consequences when the whooping wasn't, it wasn't adequate to what she was doing wrong. You know what I mean? And then I pulled back and I said, man, hey, my baby girl is 12 in the 7th grade. Like,
Yeah.
you should struggle. You know what I mean? You 12
Yes.
years old in the 7th grade. You're young compared to the other students in your grade. So
Yeah.
you have to think about all of those things. And okay, I'm gonna say it like this too. Daddies, you need to get real about your sons, and mothers, you need to get real about your daughters, and vice versa to about your kids. Not all your kids gonna be perfect.
They're
You got to
not gonna
just
be
wait for
perfect.
them to do their best. You know what I mean? But I think sometimes you ain't got nothing to do. You should be making all A's. Well, maybe he's not an all A student. Maybe he's an AB student. But what are we doing to make sure we're helping them excel? And then are we giving them
Yeah.
proper consequences? I'm done.
Man, Kev, you brushed on something earlier that I think we need to highlight just a little bit. One of the most important, underrated things that parents need to do is model behaviors that they want to see in their kids. I saw too many times, and when I was a kid, I don't know about y'all, your parent will be like, you need to do this, you need to do this. And then all of a sudden they doing something completely different. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know how
Mm-hmm.
much of a message shift
Mm-hmm.
that's happening in your kid's head when you're
Mm-hmm.
telling me to do one thing, but you're showing me a completely different thing. As a kid, I'm more prone and likely to see what you're doing and react, like, do that as opposed to
Yeah.
hear what you're telling me. So it's important for parents to like, I want them to respect me. Well, how often have you respected them?
Ooh,
How often
not
have you like took into account like their feelings, their emotions, all these different things? Like I think we get this idea like kids should be a certain
you
way, and
just
it's like
you just struck
you're not
somebody's nerve.
you're not
Bro,
even like modeling that. You're not even showing
bro.
what that even looks like. So like it's important that we model behaviors that we want in our
Listen,
kiddos. And all the science and people will tell you that.
I'm not trying to shut this conversation down, but I know
You
DJ got
probably
to
should.
actually go to work.
I do.
I see you over there checking your email. Don't think I ain't
Oh,
paying
yes.
attention. I see you checking your email, DJ.
Checking my
But
emails,
man,
checking
here's the thing.
Pride about.
Here's my thing is, I think a lot of it can be summed up in, like DJ said, parents didn't have patience. I talked about parents not understanding. I really think the problem is that us as parents don't want to grow. Because in order for us to be better parents, we have to learn about our kids and why they're doing things that they're doing. So that requires growth. We have to unlearn things that we've been taught. So that requires growth. And we like it, and it's just as like parents, we don't want to grow and we don't want to parent. Like we rather let the iPads parent. We rather let TV parent. And you see what's happening on TV.
Tag me in, coach.
Like, bro, I was listening to the radio, man. Don't get me wrong. Like I don't always listen to the radio. A lot of times I drive with the radio off just because a lot of things are trash. But sometimes, you know what? I'm in a little mood. And so I was listening to this radio station out here in Dallas, man, and it's a pop top 100s. And Ariana Grande got this song out right now, 34, 35. And like I was like, hold on, I was like, that's 69. I was like, and then like I looked up the real words and I was like, oh, and I'm just like, bro, like, what like,
can it get even worse?
Yeah, I think about this, and we could probably mic drop this after I say this. Like, in every aspect of our life, we're seeking to get better. We're seeking to be better Christians. We're seeking to be better in our jobs. We're seeking to be better as friends. We're seeking to be better in our relationship with significant others. Rarely do you hear people say, oh man, I want to be the best parent I could be. And your kids are growing from 2 to 5 to 6 to 7, and parents are not.
Yeah.
So like, to be an effective parent, you got to be able to grow just right along with you can't be parenting your child how you parented them when they were in elementary, when they were in middle school. Like, just as they're evolving, you got to evolve right along with them. Like, and I know they're like, man, I got all these things to worry about. Like, honestly, like, your focus should be raising and training up your child, and then everything else is secondary. Yes, you got to put food on the table and different things like that, but don't let that distract you from raising up your lineage. Like Kev said earlier, like, this is your, like, they're carrying your name. Like, they're like, you want them to be everything that they can be and more. Like, as parents, we want our kids to be better than us. So do the things that you need to do to ensure that that happens. You have all the responsibility as a parent to make sure that that happens. And when I'm talking to students, like, I'm not putting too much onus on them and their behaviors. Like, you, the adults, I want you to figure out the situation. I want you to be the bigger person in arguments and say, you know what, not going to argue about this. When you calm down, we'll talk about it later. But this is what I think about this situation. Like that's the type of parenting we have to move towards to ensure that we're raising up leaders and not raising up people who are just going to fall in line with whatever society tells them to do.
Yeah, nah, that's on point, bro. Mic drop.
And like mic drop, we done. And if y'all didn't catch it, man, this episode is brought to you by TLC, Teach Love Connect, man. Fatherhood brand, forefathers by fathers. You see us with the swagger. You see me, I got the dash shirt on. You see Kev over there, he got the cardinal and yellow. Fatherhood of everything. DJ got that turquoise boy on. TLCbrand.com, man. We've been here. Fatherhood over everything. And before we get out of here, DJ, what you got to say to the people, man? You got some final words, final thoughts, final nuggets?
I want people not to be alarmed by my delivery. I just tend to be a person who's like, I just want to hit you and then will you in, kind of love on you and take care of you after that. Because I feel like people were like, oh, you smacked me in the face with that information, but I kind of like it. So can we talk further about how parenting goes? And so if you're out there, like Josh said, like DJ Inspires Parenting, hit me up. I will get you research. I will help you get the information that you need to start moving forward to raise liberated kids and not oppressed kids. That's the key.
That's good. Kev, what you got, man?
Man, listen, you know, I do fatherhood coaching all the time, especially with my teenage coaches. But the most important thing is to understand your kid is a human being. Like, your kid is an individual that you get the opportunity to pour into and to help flourish into the person that God created them to be. And sometimes we have to step back and recognize that they're not just kids. They're not just a possession, my child, my this, my that. You know, they are individuals individuals who really need your love, who really need your attention. And we are the ones who have to go in there, figure out who they are, and pull that out of them so that they can be great. And so I think if we start switching our mindsets from having a kid to having a person, it will help us be great dads. It'll help us be great mothers all the way around, especially great co-parents, because now we're including them in our conversation.
You know what I heard? Switching it from our child being a chore to our child being our lineage, like our child being our job to raise up. That's what I heard when you said that.
Y'all go like and subscribe to the podcast, man. Leave a review and all that stuff. I apologize if you heard the heater come on. My wife is in here pushing buttons, turning on stuff. So we gonna get out of here. But until next time, y'all take care. We'll see y'all next week.
Love y'all.